Welcome to the show. Well, the 2016 Maryland primary elections are now in the history books, and I must say I was more than a little surprised by some of the results. Let's take a look at the individual races, starting with the U.S. Senate Democratic race. Carl, any surprises for you that Chris Van Hollen got the nod?
Well, that wasn't a surprise. I mean, this is a time of Democratic establishment winning, and that's what they did. That Delaney won as well. I just no big surprise there at all.
But you had Donna Edwards, who was supported by Emily's List. Is that right, Ryan?
Yep.
Who, I mean, this is replacing Barbara Mikulski, a legend in the Senate, who I think, frankly, did a good job. I'm a Republican that liked Mikulski. I liked her a lot, frankly.
You rhino. Nothing but a rhino.
Whatever you want to call it. But it didn't surprise you that we didn't.
No.
Tim, what do you think?
Yeah, I think, we did see a lot out of, I think this might be the Hogan effect, that we're seeing a lot more Democrats want to kind of take a step back and take fewer chances with candidates that they might not be 100% sold on. You mentioned Delaney is a very solid choice. They took Raskin over a couple of very rich but somewhat unknowns in, the 8th district. Van Hollen is certainly a solid choice, and more than that, he's probably destined for great things in the Senate. And so you did see Democrats, I think, on a statewide level, kind of react to a threat from the Republicans last time, and maybe figure that this, they need to get their house in order and put the best candidate out there rather than play footsie with candidates that might be a little fringe.
Ryan, Kathy Shalega killed it on the Republican side.
She did.
What do you think about that race?
That made sense. Kathy is a well-known commodity in the Baltimore area. She is the House minority whip for the Republicans in the Maryland House of Delegates. She had most of the delegates' support, which I guess you could technically say that's part of the establishment. And Kathy's very likable. She's very, she's kind of motherly. My problem is with Kathy, there wasn't a whole lot of policy. It was just sort of piggybacking off of Governor Hogan's win. But I think that the race between her and Van Hollen, there's going to be a clear separation of ideas, and I think that it's going to be actually a decent campaign. They're both good people. I mean, Van Hollen's a good guy. He had it wrapped up quickly. The whole entire Montgomery County Democratic establishment came out immediately and supported Van Hollen. Edwards, she gave up a safe congressional seat.
Yeah.
But Anthony Brown, talk about a comeback kid in the 4th Congressional District, a guy who got blown away 2 years ago in the governor's race, spent like $23 million, still owes money, I believe, in loans, and he came back and beat Glenn Ivey last night.
Yeah. Any surprise that Chris Kafalis and Chris Chafee, Chris came in second, which was kind of surprising to me. And Chris Kafalis, I really expected Chris to do better than third.
Yeah, it's hard for Chris, being a first-time candidate, but it's really interesting. Chris Chafee, I really didn't know who he was until a couple of days before the campaign, and I never thought that he would come in second, but the reason why he did is I believe that he aligned himself squarely with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump did very well in Maryland among Republicans.
So John Delaney, on the congressional side, John Delaney is, again, in my mind, a very centrist Democrat. He got the nod on the Democratic side. Ami Hober, who has really, really, really spent a lot of money, having said that, only beat Terry Baker by 3,000 couple votes, which I thought was a pretty good showing for Terry Baker, although most of that support was, I think, here locally in Washington County.
Yeah.
What about that race? Tim, any thoughts?
Well, yeah, I was impressed with what Terry Baker was able to put together. If there's anyone who should wish for a return to the old 6th district as it used to be drawn under the old rules, it'd be Baker, because I think he wins if we're under that previous district that Roscoe Bartlett carried for so many years. Because And we knew going in, we kind of thought going in that Baker wasn't going to get any votes in
I
in
wouldn't-
Frederick
yeah.
and Montgomery, and nobody voted for him there, and that's where he lost.
That's true.
I didn't expect him to get, though, 13,000, almost 13,300 votes. And, I mean, I was totally shocked by that.
I
and
wasn't.
Really?
No, not at all, because Baker in Washington County is immensely popular.
He is. He is.
He
no doubt
wins
about it.
every time. He's won his county commissioner race outright and has had the most votes. People like Terry. He's a congenial person.
He is.
I don't always agree with his voting, but
Although more people voted against him in Washington County than voted for him. I think he got 47% of the vote. So
Okay.
even though it was a big field, he still didn't beat the field.
well, you know, you look at Ami. She ran a general election campaign.
She absolutely did. I can't imagine the money that she spent.
They spent a lot of money, but think about it this way: she spent a lot of money to grow who she was, to introduce her message, because nobody knew who she was before she started. It was an organic style of marketing. She had to introduce herself. She had to do it through a series of mailers.
She
did no robocalls.
She, not robocalls, but she did these virtual town halls, if you will, where it was they would call
People
you.
love that.
Yeah, I loved it. I actually
Oh,
got.
did you join it?
Well, they called me at home,
Yeah.
and I joined it not because I intended to, but
She did spend a lot of money, and there was a super PAC that also helped her out. But I got to tell you, if there's any candidate to go up and in a general election matchup, and we know it's going to be a difficult race for any Republican, but Ami Hober could really appeal to a lot of independents in Montgomery County.
probably. But I'm betting on Delaney on this.
You
one.
can bet on Delaney, but I'm betting on Hober.
I like Hober.
Yeah.
I could vote for Hober, but
Yeah.
my bet is on Delaney. Okay, we're running out of time, but let's talk about the mayoral race. Any surprise that David Geisberts and Bob Brucci got the nod?
No.
No.
The biggest surprise was Rachel Cooper getting as many votes as she did.
Yeah, I was surprised by that as well.
That's kind of weird, isn't it?
So if I'm Dave Geisberts and Bob Brucci, if I'm Dave Geisberts and I'm looking at these results,
Yeah.
I'm saying, wow, I only beat him by 300 votes. If I'm Bob Brucci looking at them, I'm saying, wow, he beat me by 300 votes. And the other interesting thing, and I don't know whether you looked on Facebook this week or not, but Rachel, the day after the election, came out on Facebook on Bob Brucci's page and said, by the way, I hope all of my supporters will vote for you. You add Rachel's numbers to Bob's numbers, at least in the primary, and we know that the turnout is down in the primary, different race. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah,
to
but
see how that
I
plays
think
out.
the key thing you say there is this is a primary, because
It
you
is.
can, and we've seen county commissioner results that were
17%.
totally
Yeah.
turned on
Right.
their ear in the general election just because you have so many more people voting.
I don't know how much influence Rachel Cooper would yield with, basically 1,100 votes.
Yeah.
That's fine. I mean, look.
It doesn't hurt, is what I'm saying.
But
I
they
mean,
split the vote up. David and Bob. This will be another grudge match, and I don't think Bob's going to have any qualms of taking on David. Bob's going to have to work for it. He's
He
going to
is.
have to go out and.
But so is David.
And so is David.
Because a lot of the things that David said I'm against in the Bob Brucci administration, he's now turned his opinion on.
Yeah. I'm most surprised by some of the Board of Education
So
results.
let's go there next. Board of Education. Wayne Ridenour, top vote getter. That doesn't surprise me. Peter Bickford, secondary vote getter. No, he's got a huge following from his days at NBC 25. Anybody surprised by those results?
Now, the interesting thing is, apparently the anger that is afflicting itself on the American people right now doesn't apply to local races because, as I see it, I think every incumbent or former incumbent in the local races got in or would get in if the election were held today.
I was surprised by Al Martin not being so low on the list, and I know Al didn't focus as much on the primary. I think he'll probably focus a lot more as we move into the general.
Yeah.
And I guess I haven't heard anything from Robin Weivel, but at some level, I've got a big problem with someone who drops out of the race because she thinks she's going to get a better gig at the county, and then when somebody suggests she get back in, and I don't know who prompted that.
Can I speak on that?
Sure, go right ahead.
There was an email blast. It was last week, it was either, I think it was on Wednesday or Thursday, Neil Parrott released his endorsements, and he endorsed Robin Weibel. In fact, he said draft Robin Weibel, and as you mentioned, she had said that she was going to drop out of the race, but then she basically said the next day, well, if the people push me through, Neil Parrott should be ashamed of himself for disrupting the process and applying this Tea Party mentality to the Board of Education and politicizing a traditionally non-political organization as such as the Board of Education. Neil Parrott should be ashamed of himself, in my opinion. I disagree with what he did, and this right here, Joe Chandler could have gotten through, and you know, I don't know. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I'm surprised. I don't think it's good from my perspective, but hey, you know. Stan Stauffer did well. That was kind of surprising to me. Linda Murray did well. She is a relative unknown. That was kind of surprising to me. Donna Brightman, no surprise. Melissa Williams, I'm not a fan, but she did well. We're going to extend this by a minute, but let's talk for just about 30 seconds on the city council race. 10 of the 11 got through. Colin Ploskuru, our former mate here on the Flipside, didn't make it. That was very surprising to me. I think he had a really good message.
He did.
Any thoughts on the city council race?
No.
Lot of.
Alshire always gets the top vote,
Yeah, he does.
and he doesn't really do anything, no campaigning. Munson, Emily Keller, great choice. She really worked it, and
She really did.
I'm proud of Emily. She has a great message. She has the vibrancy of the community. There's a lot of young people that are living in the city of Hagerstown. Good for her, and I really hope she wins.
And we're going to give you the last word on that. Next up on the flip side, we'll look more in depth at the national presidential race. Stay tuned for that report. We're back in 3.